Okay, guys, I've been avoiding this one for a while, but we're going to talk about the Ahmaud Arbery case. And the single element that I feel will make or break this case. That element being the hammer. Under Georgia state law, if you enter into the commission of a crime with tools in your possession, you're in possession of burglary tools, a felony. So this is where it gets tricky with this. In February, Mr. Arbery was seen entering a home under construction. This home has been sitting in this derelict state for several months because the owner has Parkinson's disease and is probably not going to finish the construction. I'm sure his family's working something out with the property, who knows. Now, the property has no physical barriers preventing access to the property. So even though technically, if Mr. Arbery brought the hammer with him, he was technically in possession of burglary tools, he can't have committed burglary because those tools could not be used in the commission of the crime. He didn't have to pry a lock or break a window or anything else. He was able to enter and exit the property without a problem. It wasn't boarded up, there was no doors, there was no locks, he could just walk in and out. So physically, he was trespassing. Mind you, he was trespassing in possession of burglary tools. He was committing a felony, not a violent felony, but he was committing a felony. Yes, there's technically a victim, the homeowner, although clearly no persons could occupy that dwelling with the purpose of living in it. So it's hard to say there's a victim in this crime. So at best, he is a annoying, nonviolent felon. And there is such a thing as a stupid ass. A person with just no common sense who stumbles into the bad situations. And maybe that's this guy. I don't know. Don't know the guy. Now, if he entered the property without the hammer in his possession, and he just picked the hammer up and put it in his pocket while he was there, because there are little gaps in the video where he could have seen something and picked it up and put it in his pocket. If that's the case, then he's a trespasser and a petty thief. In Georgia, if you steal something with a value less than $500, it's a misdemeanor. It's punishable by up to a year in jail. So with that knowledge in mind, let's go through the events. Mr. Arbery was seen by neighbors and on video entering this dwelling. No one lived there. It was under construction. His path was not barred. He didn't use tools to enter. He was trespassing. And any of you who have watched my videos in the past know that I'm not a bleeding heart. I don't have any sympathy for criminals. I'm just speaking the facts here, okay? He wasn't jogging. He went there for whatever reason, to that dwelling. Now, he entered the dwelling, he walked around for a second. You can't see everything he did because there are blind spots on the camera. So like I said, we don't know if the hammer was in his pocket when he got there or if he picked it up while he was there. Either way, he left the property. Now, whichever crime he committed, whether it was burglary or possession of burglary tools and trespassing, or trespassing and petty theft, at that point, I don't think we've reached a level that would justify the use of deadly force. Okay, so the two gentlemen in question attempted to stop him. He didn't want to stop. They got in their truck and they chased him for several blocks. They're on video. A disinterested third party followed them videotaping it. They're on video. They're heard several times. We know they called the police. There's 2 911 calls, 3 911 calls. The gentleman who was videotaping it called 911. The gentleman in question called 911 when he was seen entering the home, and allegedly there's a third 911 call that hasn't been released yet. So, they're still in the level of justified action here. Georgia's private person's arrest law says if a misdemeanor or a felony is committed in their presence, they have the right to detain that person for law enforcement. I'll put a link to that section of the crime code and all relevant crime codes to this video in the description. So, as we watch the video, at one point, truck stops, the driver jumps out of the truck with a shotgun and attempts to apprehend Mr. Arbery. I don't know if I find that reasonable. This situation, as with any situation, you have to use the any man principle. What level of reasonable force would any man apply to this? I feel like I'm any man. In this case, I can understand the property owners in the area being annoyed. Law enforcement isn't as proactive as they should be anymore. They have to be terrified of every freaking Johnny Cochran out there. So he gets out of his truck and there's a confrontation in the street. Mr. Arbery, and let me just say, he had balls. He charged a dude with a shotgun. He had balls. Dumb as shit, but he had balls. Charges the guy with a shotgun and a struggle ensues. There's a couple points to make here. I don't believe his intention was to shoot Mr. Arbery. Otherwise, he would have just shot him. I personally don't believe the young man had it in him to shoot somebody because, frankly, Mr. Arbery got a hold of his gun. Quick note to the side, kids, don't pull it if you're not going to use it. Anyway, so a struggle ensued. Him and Mr. Arbery were fighting over the gun. In the video, they're facing each other. Mr. Arbery has the gun by the barrel. From what I've read, the pellets hit Mr. Arbery in his left side, mid-torso, which is supported by the video. He had the gun this way. He was yanking it this way. What I feel most likely happened, looking at the mechanics of the situation, is the gentleman had his finger on the trigger to the rifle, and it's simple mechanics. Mr. Arbery yanked it, trigger got pulled. Is the young man criminally culpable? I believe he was negligent in his handling of the firearm. Do I believe he intended to murder Mr. Arbery? No. Now, under the law, he's probably not culpable, but that's up to a jury. Like I said, I feel like his handling of the situation from the perspective of a firearm owner was negligent. There wasn't a need for that level of force. This was not a violent offense. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was harmed. They were annoyed. And for God's sakes, is the value of human life diminished so much that we shoot people for annoying us? I'd like to think not. I believe in castle laws. I believe in stand your ground laws. But this was not a stand your ground situation. They could have called the police and filed a report. And yes, it might have taken years before Mr. Arbery was finally caught one day by some enterprising officer who was between Taco Bells on his shift. But until there's a victim and there's someone been hurt, who cares? Whether or not Mr. Arbery was a scumbag piece of shit or a future valedictorian, he was still a human being. So is this young man that propagated this accident. The justice system is going to do what they're going to do. And like I said, I believe that hammer is going to be a deciding factor in that. At the end of the day, I don't think Mr. Arbery deserved to die. I don't believe he was jogging. I don't jog in my work boots. I don't jog with a hammer in my pocket. I don't believe that any man would find that reasonable. So, obviously Mr. Arbery wasn't jogging. But no matter what the events in question were, Mr. Arbery didn't deserve to die. I don't necessarily think this gentleman needs to be charged with murder, but there was some negligence on his part. Hopefully the justice system has a chance to do its job. I hope, folks, that what we can all take away from this is the use of a firearm requires common sense and personal responsibility. And that if you use a firearm in a negligent manner, you can and will be punished for it. We'll see what happens with this case. I'll keep an eye on it. If I see any updates, I'll let you know. As always, folks, be decent to each other. We're all in this together. God bless.